Chair, it's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. I beg to move that this House considers the Windsor Framework Internal Market Guarantee. In bringing this matter to the House again, the intention is to retain a focus on the most egregious and anti-business situation which continues to prevail in respect of trade within this United Kingdom internally to Northern Ireland. And however one dresses this up, and the government excels in its attempts in that regard, the fundamental reality is this: that courtesy of the post-Brexit arrangements, first enunciated in the protocol and then by change of name in the Windsor Framework, we have the absurd situation where a part of this United Kingdom is governed by the trade laws of a foreign jurisdiction, namely the EU. The very essence of being part of the United Kingdom surely should be, when it comes to trade, the unfettered nature of that trade, the fact that you can trade as freely from Cardiff to Carlisle, from Gloucester to Glasgow, as you should be able to trade from Birmingham to Belfast. That is the essence of being in a United Kingdom where unfettered trade lies at the heart of that economic union. And of course that is already specified for in Article 6 of our Acts of Union. But the current arrangements, which are based upon the situation that when Brexit occurred, Northern Ireland, instead of getting Brexit, was left behind under the EU's customs code, which means that Northern Ireland is treated for these purposes as EU territory, and GB, in that context, is treated as a third or foreign country. Hence, on the purview of the EU customs code, the need for the Irish Sea border. An Irish Sea border which is not established directly under United Kingdom law, but which is provided for by various EU provisions. And we have the most astounding position that the regulation of goods as they move from GB to Northern Ireland comes under EU legislation. It was EU legislation 2023-1128 and 2023-1231, which specify the customs formalities for trading from GB to Northern Ireland, which specify the rules relating to entry into Northern Ireland from other parts of the United Kingdom of certain consignments of goods. Even in the title of that EU legislation, do we see how wrong and absurd it is that the trading within this United Kingdom, which is supposed to be a free internal market, is governed by laws that we don't make anywhere in this United Kingdom and laws that we cannot change anywhere within this United Kingdom, but laws made by 27 other countries. And that is the fundamental, not just economic outrage, but democratic outrage in respect of these arrangements. Now within... yes?
Does he not find it, thank you, Member, for giving way, does he not even find it more astounding that not only were the laws regarding the border made by the European Union, but when it comes to those laws being applied, EU officials are actually directing officials from Northern Ireland as to which lorries should be searched, which goods should be looked for, and which actions should be taken. So we've got foreign laws and foreign officials now dictating the terms of trade between GB and Northern Ireland.
It veritably amounts to Northern Ireland being treated as an EU colony when it comes to this. And it has all those characteristics. But into this comes some of these magical phrases, like the internal market guarantee. That sounds very reassuring. You would think, listening to that terminology, that, oh, we are guaranteed that our internal trade is going to be protected. And indeed, it's further ensconced by the deceptive language of the UK internal market system. It's nothing of the sort. It's not a UK internal market system. The genesis of this is very interesting. You have the protocol, then you have the Windsor Framework, change of name, and introduces this concept of UK internal market system, which is really the Green Lane, as previously called, and then safeguarding the Union, which was supposed to bring in groundbreaking innovations, but of course the only innovation was it was to give cover to the DUP to get back into government with Sinn Féin and to help implement the protocol. And within that you have the internal market guarantee. But let's look at this UK internal market system. It's just, in a moment, it's a system which is not about how you freely, unfettered trade from GB to Northern Ireland. It's a system which brings down one peg the operation of the international customs border. You have the red lane, full-blown international customs border enforced by the EU, partitioning the United Kingdom, the border down the Irish Sea. And then, by this deceptive language, we have this UK internal market system, so-called, the Green Lane. But it still requires customs declarations, still requires an export number, still requires a percentage of checks. So it is anything but free internal market. It is the encapsulation of the enforcing of EU requirements on our internal trade within the United Kingdom, under their control, not UK control. And the depths of attempts to find deceptive language, of course, only compounds the insult that is involved in all of that.
On that point?
Yes?
Can I commend on the bring this forward? It's more than that, of course. The issue has further escalated with businesses in my constituency of Frankfurt and further afield in Northern Ireland, service with delivery services for so-called changes for the internal market. In other words, there's a cost factor now. Does the honourable member not agree that the Minister and Government must do what it promised years ago and sort out the mess, and further that they must initiate the withdrawal from the agreement that is set forward?
Well, if the Government, and of course it was the last Government which in their folly brought this upon us, but this Government, of course, with maybe greater enthusiasm, is implementing the partitioning and the dividing of the United Kingdom. And of course, the economic consequence of that is to divert trade. Because if you say to a business supplier in GB, from which most of our raw materials come, and we had a very integrated UK economy, where Northern Ireland was heavily dependent on its trade to and from GB. If you say to those suppliers in GB, well, if you want to send goods to Northern Ireland, if you even want to send a parcel to Northern Ireland, you must have an export number, you must fill in a customs declaration, and we will carry out a percentage of checks on the goods. And that's on the supposed internal market system, never mind the red lane. And of course the natural consequence of that, and we are seeing it, but the Government deliberately, consciously closes its eyes to this, that the natural consequence of that is diversion of trade, which has been self-evident in recent years, but as I say, the Government doesn't want to observe it, doesn't want to take account of it, because it should be under a duty, immediately that happens, under Article 16 of the Protocol, to act. But this is a Government which is so kowtowed to the EU that it's never going to act on the issues that it should. I'm going to give way to Mr. Swan.
And I thank the member for bringing this debate and raising this issue, continuing to raise what is an important issue. He mentions the manufacturers, but he also would agree with me the impact on the Road Haulage Association, where we've seen not only the implementation of additional bureaucracy and costs, but also the recent introduction of the Import Control System 2, or ICS 2, which government said was going to go live in September. They told hauliers it would then be live in December of this year, but they actually put the system live in August without engagement or interaction with the road haulage associations and hauliers in Northern Ireland, increasing bureaucracy and increasing costs.
Yes, and of course when it comes to spending money on partitioning the United Kingdom, this government has no qualms. We have seen the expenditure of 190 million to build border posts. Now, where do you have border posts but on an international border? And that is the reality of the United Kingdom today. It is partitioned by an international customs border. Because when you come from GB to Northern Ireland, you are leaving effectively one customs territory, governed by the laws of the United Kingdom, and entering a customs territory governed by the laws of the EU. I say again, laws we don't make and can't change. And it is such a fundamental assault, not just on our constitutional position, but on our businesses and our trade, that it is having increasing difficulties. And yes, okay.
Thank the honourable member for giving way. Thank you, Madam Chair. Northern Ireland remains subject to over 300 areas of EU law, meaning our businesses face checks, paperwork and ongoing diversions that no other firms or businesses in England, Scotland or Wales have to contend with. And even recently, there are numerous lorries being turned back at the ports for transporting food, which we were told was sorted out. Is this not a clear breach of the principles of unvetted access and fundamentally weakening of our place within the Union? Thank you.
Of course it is. But that's the intent of this protocol. No one should be under any illusion. This protocol, this Windsor framework, is designed to set the scene to usher Northern Ireland out of the United Kingdom by the mechanism of creating an all-Ireland economy. And the mechanism of creating an all-Ireland economy works in this way. You make it increasingly difficult to trade from GB. You therefore force business to look elsewhere for their supplies. You maximise the north-south dimension. You build an all-Ireland economy, and that's the purpose of the protocol. And you build an all-Ireland economy as a stepping stone of taking Northern Ireland out of the United Kingdom. And that is the very clear, iniquitous political purpose of the protocol. And it is that this government and the last were facilitating, and with some enthusiasm. Now, of course, government have told us, oh, we're going to take all sorts of steps to make sure that trade is not diverted. We even passed the Internal Market Act. That must be good. Section 46 does not guarantee you all sorts of wonderful things. Yeah. And the government then said, we're going to set aside a lot of money. We're going to introduce the Mutual Assistance Scheme. Let me talk, Madam Chair, about the Mutual Assistance Scheme. It was brought in to assist businesses who were having difficulties with the costs imposed in the border. It was extended, but finally ran out on the 30th of June this year. This government did not extend it. What does that mean? Let me tell you. I have a potato wholesale business in my constituency. They rely upon bringing potatoes from GB to Northern Ireland. Since the 30th of June, those potatoes have to be, the cost of the veterinary inspection of those potatoes, £127.60 per inspection. The cost of the psychosanitary certificate, £25.52, previously covered by the Movement Assistance Scheme, now is put upon the supplier in GB, and what does he do? Surprise, surprise, he puts upon the recipient in Northern Ireland. Now, if that is not guaranteed to dissuade a trade, to force trade diversion, then I can't imagine what is. But here's the question for the government. Why did you not, in all your plethora of assurances that you weren't trying to drive Northern Ireland trade and business out of the United Kingdom, why did you not renew the Movement Assistance Scheme? And the Minister who knows more about these things than anyone else in this government who's here, I trust, will explain why they did not renew the mutual assistance scheme. Is the same thing going to happen with the trader support services? Is it too going to run out? And are businesses increasingly going to be left marooned and alone to bear unconscionable burdens of financially going forward? Those are questions that this government needs to address, but the fundamental that this government needs to address is this: when is it going to recover its dignity, its pride in being supposedly the government of the UK, of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, by controlling the borders of the United Kingdom and by expelling the internal partitionist international trade border that has been imposed on Northern Ireland? Unless and until it does that, then this issue is not settled, cannot be settled, and the government cannot go on brushing it under the carpet and increasing the pressure by abandoning issues like the mutual assistance scheme. Yes.
Would he accept it by the government's own words in the framework document? Has accepted that if there is not smooth trading, yes, then there are economic and constitutional impacts of that. So not only does the government owe it to the economy of Northern Ireland to sort these issues out, if it doesn't sort them out, it's accepting that it's happy enough to see the constitutional position of Northern Ireland affected.
And sadly, the only conclusion one can make is that it is happy enough about that. But this internal market guarantee, what's it guaranteeing? Oh, it's guaranteeing that 80% of goods from Northern Ireland, instead of passing through the full-blown international customs border, will pass through the international customs border that we misname the internal market system, but still require a customs number, still require customs declarations, still require checks. The guarantee is 80%. You can't be 80% pregnant and you can't be 80% part of the United Kingdom. We need to be completely part of the United Kingdom, and that requires the restoration of where this United Kingdom started, under Article 6 of the Acts of Union, free and unfettered trade, equal for all parts of this kingdom.
Minister Nick Thomas-Symonds.